Hello and welcome to Now German, Lesson 38, 38. Hey, Sie.
Hello, everyone. Hey, Gregor.
Sie, so in last lesson we talked about your sofa, which is what color in German?
Das ist grün. No, good. Wait. Das ist grau.
That's right, das ist grau. And then now I can ask, wie teuer ist dein Sofa? How much does it cost? How expensive is your sofa? Perhaps you don't know, but if you had to guess, what would you think? How much?
Mm, 100 pounds?
All right. And this, of course, number 100, we already looked at, but in today's lesson, we'll even look at numbers all the way up to 1 million, which you'll need for various purposes. But before I talk more, let's look at our dialogue.
Wie viel kostet dieses Sofa?
Dieses Sofa kostet 1299 Euro.
Okay. Und wie teuer ist das Bett hier?
Das kostet 2499 Euro.
Und was kostet der rote Stuhl?
Der kostet 734 Euro.
Okay. Ich kaufe dies drei Mobile.
Sehr gerne. Das kostet dann 4541 Euro. Yes, it is diese drei Möbel.
Diese drei Mobile.
All right, let's look at all the words and what they mean. Wie viel?
Wie viel?
That is how much. And es kostet.
Es kostet.
Yes, it costs. So both of them together put in a question is wie viel kostet es? How much does it cost? And then if you talk about a particular item, you can, for example, use dieses.
Dieses.
Yeah, that means this in a neutral way. In a past lesson, we saw dieser. That's the same, but for masculine. And for feminine, it would be diese. So for example, here is Tasse. I can say diese Tasse, this particular cup. And then we have das Sofa.
Das Sofa.
The sofa, of course. And again, wie.
Wie?
As we saw in last lesson, wie can have different meanings. It can mean how, and it can also mean like. And if you ask wie teuer, that means how expensive. So in this context, we go back to the original meaning. So I already said the next word, that is teuer.
Teuer.
That's expensive. And then we have das Bett,
Das Bett.
the bed. And we have hier.
Hier.
Here, we saw that many times. Do you remember? So in English, we have here and there. Do you remember what is there in German?
Dort.
That's right, exactly. And then we have das.
Das.
That's dat in German in a neutral sense. And we use it as the article, but we also use it to point at a certain article without repeating the noun itself. And then was.
Was?
Which is what, of course. We saw it many times. And der Stuhl.
Der Stuhl.
The chair. I feel it's coming up in almost every lesson here. We've definitely had a lot of chairs. And then we have rot.
Rot.
That is red. And one thing you can note in this dialogue, what we did with colors and other adjectives before is we put them after a verb. We say, das Sofa ist rot, for example. The sofa is red, right? And like in English, we can also say, not just the sofa is red, but we can also say the red sofa, and then we can add some other things that are the case with this. So how much is this red sofa, for example, like that? But the tricky thing in German is that if you put the adjectives before the noun, they will have some change in endings. That's why in this dialogue, you didn't just have rot, but you had rote. And we don't look at this grammar in detail yet because it's a bit more complicated. I just want you to know what's going on and why it is rote in this dialogue in this case. Okay, and then we have der.
Der.
That is that in the masculine way, in the same way that we had das in the neutral way. And then ich kaufe.
Ich kaufe.
I buy. And diese.
Diese.
That is these in feminine and also in plural. And that is exactly what I talked about with dieses and dieser before. And we have drei.
Drei.
Three. Yeah, we'll look at much higher numbers right afterwards in the grammar section. And then die Möbel.
Die Möbel.
The furniture. That is a plural word here. And then we have sehr gerne.
Sehr gerne.
That's with pleasure. Sehr means feel and or much, and gerne is kind of like it's my pleasure. I like to do that. Sehr gerne. So you can always say that when someone else asks you to do something, and either you want to be polite or it is actually making you happy. So if you are like selling furniture and they want to buy something from you, of course you'll be very happy to sell them. And so it's very natural then to say sehr gerne or sehr gern. That letter E in the end of gern is always optional. So gern and gerne is the same. And lastly, we have dann.
Dann.
That is then. Okay, makes sense?
Yes.
Great. Then let's look at our dialogue one more time.
Wie viel kostet dieses Sofa?
Dieses Sofa kostet 1299 Euro.
Okay. Und wie teuer ist das Bett hier?
Das kostet 2499 Euro.
Und was kostet der rote Stuhl?
Der kostet 734 Euro.
Okay. Ich kaufe diese drei Möbel.
Diese drei Möbel.
Diese drei Möbel.
Sehr gerne. Das kostet dann 4541 Euro. All right, and now let's look at the numbers as I mentioned in the beginning. So we already learned numbers up to 1000, so let's start there. First, we have 1000 itself, which is?
1000.
Yes, and 2000 is?
2000.
Yes, can you go up until 10,000?
3000. 4000. 5000. 6000. 7000. 8000. 1000. 9000. 10,000.
Yes, great. So basically, it's like counting from 1 to 10. You just always add the word 1000 afterwards, right? And
Yes.
now let's continue from 10,000 to 100,000. Go ahead.
10,000. 20,000. 30,000. 40,000. 50,000. 60,000. 70,000. 80,000. 90,000. 100,000.
Yes, it's almost like some kind of meditative chant in that sense that the 1000 just repeats. There is really no irregularity. It's also like counting from 10 to 100. And then the good thing is the logic just continues. So one last time, can I ask you?
100,000, 200,000, 300,000, 400,000, 500,000, 600,000, 700,000, 800,000, 900,000, 1 million.
Yes. The last word in German will say that eine Million.
1 million.
Yes, exactly. So we pronounce that ON a bit stronger than in English. And then now we know how the logic works, and we can, of course, combine them into smaller numbers as well. So, for example, here, the first one is 201,000. How would I say that?
201,000.
That's right. And we also have 987,000.
987.80.000.
Yes. So as we saw with the numbers above 100 to 1000, you see we first have the 100 digit, then the individual digit, and then the 10 digit in between. So the order is flipped. It's 900, 7, and 80, right? And then we just add the word 1000 in the end. So it's the same logic, just you can remove the 3 zeros, and then we just add 1000 to represent the 3 zeros. And then if we just combine everything that we learned, we have a really long number here, 1,234,567. How would I say that in German?
What about you say that?
All right, I'll go ahead. 1,234,567. Yes. It looks really long, but it is actually quite logical once you get to wrap your head around only this digit between 10, 20, 30 and the individual numbers. Otherwise, it's quite similar to English. And one detail I want to point out is that in German, like if you have numbers above 1000 in English, you would usually use commas to separate the values every 3 digits. So it's more easy to read for larger numbers. But in German, we don't really do that because comma is what we use a dot instead. So 0.5 in German, we'll say 0,5, right? So the comma is what we use to split between the fractional values. That's why we don't use it as a divider. And then we use this apostrophe instead, which is like the high comma that's just raised up there. That's why you see this sign that you might not see in US or in English in general.
Okay.
All right. Any
Got it.
questions about the numbers?
So for the final one, just want to make like a brief summary because the whole like a chunk of the word is just quite hard to digest. So I guess it's really based on how we separate them. And the first is definitely just a median. And then in the middle part, we combine them together and then that will be several hundred something something and combined with another 3 digits which is also 100 something something. So by combining these 3, we were actually spelling the number correctly.
Yeah, exactly. That's just right. Okay, then let's look at our dialogue one last time.
Wie viel kostet dieses Sofa?
Dieses Sofa kostet 1.299 €.
Okay. Und wie teuer ist das Bett hier?
Das kostet 2.499 €.
Und was kostet der rote Stuhl?
Der kostet 734 €.
Okay. Ich kaufe these 3 Mobile.
Sehr gerne. Das kostet dann 4.541 €. And be careful, it is diese.
Diese
Yes. Okay.
3 Mobile.
Exactly. That's right. And so over time, you'll notice there are many occasions when you need these large numbers. So for example, when someone asks you, how many people live in the place where you come from or the country, or how many kilometers does it take to go to somewhere? So there are many of these occasions that will come up over time. So it's just good to know these numbers. And once you learn them, you just have them in your head. You don't really need to struggle with that, right?
Yes.
Okay, then we hope all the things you buy are not too expensive though, so you can hopefully use small numbers for that. And we wish you all a great day and we'll see you in the next one. Tschüss.
Tschüss.